I've always been really curious. Like,
Yeah.
I've only got a bit of Spanish in my head and English. When you have that many languages in your head, you essentially end up a year with 5. Is there overlap? Do you get confused? Like, how did it start to compound? And
Yeah, I think interference. So this is the sort of psychological term for what you're talking about. Interference, which is where you have like kind of two competing memories. I think that's the biggest challenge of learning multiple languages. If you could just learn them all in isolation and then somehow you just like flip a switch in your brain and okay, now I'm speaking Spanish, only Spanish words, or now I'm speaking this, only this words. It would be much easier to learn like 10 to 20 languages. The hard part is that when you learn one, it's like competing with the other. And I really noticed that when we were in Spain. So again, like we're in Spain right now. A couple years prior, I'd learned French, and French to a decent level. Like I could have conversations in it. And I remember we were in Barcelona near the end of the trip, and we went to some kind of meetup thing, and there were some French people, and I was like, "Oh, I can speak to them in French," and it was like I can't speak French anymore. Like I literally couldn't. It was like, it was like this mental block, like because you're suppressing so hard saying the Spanish words. And if you practice both of them alternating, that does get easier. So I don't want to say that it's like a permanent issue, but it definitely compounds the difficulty because when you learn a new language, you tend to have to do practice of the old languages to kind of keep them separate, so to speak. So there was work after the trip, I think, of doing that. Ironically, it tends to be worst for the languages that you get the most benefit from. So when you're learning Spanish after French, you get a lot of benefit because there's similarities in grammar and vocabulary. Portuguese, you get a huge benefit because it's very similar to Spanish, but then you have to keeping them separate is very hard. Whereas Chinese, which was very difficult because you're building it up from scratch, basically, I never confuse it with other languages. So like if I'm speaking Chinese, I know I'll have no interference from like Macedonian or Spanish. There's never a chance that a Spanish word's going to pop out when I'm speaking Chinese. Sometimes there's Korean. I get a little bit of interference from Chinese, but my Chinese is a lot better than my Korean. But this is like kind of a trade-off, right? Like if you know Spanish and you learn Italian, you're going to learn Italian much faster than if you didn't know any. But then you're going to have a harder time speaking Spanish. So you have to like kind of pay that price after to like get them untangled. So yeah, that's definitely a challenge, I think, of learning multiple languages.